Hi, I'm a real estate broker out of the Houston area. I help lots of investors. So today I'm trying to make a video to kind of show some type of analysis whereby we can make a decision. Or I can show you the numbers and see if we can make a decision if paying cash for real estate, investment real estate, is better than financing it. We're gonna do all the analysis and all the numbers together, and we can all agree finance is better. Because and the reason what brought about is because I've had situations whereby I have clients they go through the financing route, and they get asked a lot of questions, and probably did not enjoy the process as much, and they probably swore to themselves that, oh, I'd rather wait until I have the cash before I buy. But I think one of the reasons why I'm making the video is going to help them to know how to make the best decision from a financial standpoint. Yeah, stand by. Let me show you. So, I have two fictional characters today. One of them is Mr. John, and the other one is Mr. Frank. Both of them they have the same cash to play with, 300,000. What they're buying in a piece of real estate is going to be in the same location. So for Mr. John, is buying this single family home for 300,000 somewhere in Katy, Texas. He's paying cash for it. And the same thing happens for Mr. Frank as well. So Mr. Frank is not paying cash. Mr. Frank is buying the same $300,000 asset, and he wants five of them because obviously, he's going to need about 20% down payment, and 20% is going to be about 60,000 of 300. So it can command about five of them. So that puts him at around 1.5 million. So he's commanding an asset of 1.5 million. So now I'm going to start from appreciation. Because appreciation is actually where you actually tend to make money in real estate. So I'm going to start from there. I'm going to try as much as possible to be very close to what is actual for the appreciation. So if everything else is off, at least I wouldn't have to worry about it. So for the appreciation, for Mr. John, let's assume his annualized appreciation is maybe about 4%. 4% appreciation over a 12-month period. So if we calculate that over a 5-year period, because both of them they're gonna hold this asset for 5 years before they sell it. So now his appreciation is gonna be $60,000. His appreciation, Mr. John's appreciation is gonna be 60,000 over a 5-year period. So now let's look at, and bear in mind the appreciation could be lower, it could be higher, it could be 8%, 9%, it could be 10%. Right after COVID, we had some people that bought assets, that bought a real piece of real estate that appreciated easy 20, 30%. But that is actually it's not quite normal. So, and on the flip side, it could be lower, it could be 2%. It could even be negative. It could lose value and go right back up. But at least what we know about real estate is it tends to hold value, and it tends to keep going on the upside. So for both of them, once again, it's 4%. For Mr. Frank, his appreciation over a 5-year period came out to $300,000. $300,000. So you can do the maths because it's going to be about 60,000 every year, and you multiply that by 5. So that's going to give us 300,000. That's his appreciation. So obviously, it's doing much better than Mr. John, right? It's doing way better than him. So now, if you look at the cash flow, uh, let's say for Mr. John, let's say he's renting the house for 2,500. Let's assume it's 2,500 because you could potentially rent something that you purchased for 300 for 2,500 in some areas of Katy. So after he pays his taxes, his insurance, his HOA, let's assume it takes him about 1,200 in cash flow. So that will put him around $75,000 over the period of time that he's owning the asset. He's gonna have about 75,000 in cash flow. Decent, right? So we add 75 to that. That's about 135. That's about 135,000. So now let's assume Mr. Frank did not have any cash flow. He did not have any cash flow, which we know, over some time there's going to be rent growth. It's going to have cash flow, but let's just assume he did not have no cash flow. It was just breaking even. So with that being said, we have $0 for him. So there's something called amortization. So essentially, what it means is that your when you borrow money, your loan is being amortized over a specific period of time. It could be 15 years, it could be 30 years. So in this case, Mr. John is not going to have amortization. He does not have any debt that anybody is paying for him. So in that situation, it's going to be $0. So it's going to be plus $0 for Mr. John. So for Mr. Frank, the specific number I can give you, but I can give you something more like a guesstimate. So let's say for Mr. Frank, let's say for each asset, let's say over a 5-year period, what his tenants have paid off is maybe, let's say it's not as much, it's nothing. Let's call it $5,000. $5,000. So over a 5-year period, he has 25,000 plus 25. So he has 325. Obviously, he's doing much better than Mr. John. So now we look at the tax benefit. So tax benefit means, of course, you have to talk to your tax advisor regarding tax benefit. But of course, historically, when you own real estate, you tend to have passive losses that you can write off, and you have something called a bonus depreciation. I'm not, I'm not a tax professional, but I'll let you talk to a tax professional about that. But let's assume what he has in. Let's assume both of them. I don't want to put any actual figure for that because, of course, I'm not a tax person. I wouldn't be able to tell you what they'll get back in tax benefit. But let's leave that as let's just leave it blank for both of them. So amortization. So we assumed what was paid down in his debt for each property was $5,000 over a 5-year period. You and I know it's going to be more than that, except if his interest rate is maybe 10%. So let's assume maybe what he had was 5,000, and let's now say on top of that, so he had that times 5, so that's 25. So for tax benefit, like I mentioned, I'm not sure if it was like in the last portion of the video. So for the tax benefit, let's assume I'm not going to put anything there. I'm just going to leave that on blank. But for the repairs and turnover expenses and vacancy, let's say over the 5-year period, let's say it cost Mr. John maybe $5,000. So that's going to be negative $5,000. So obviously, Mr. Frank has a bigger problem. He has 5 of them. So if it costs this guy 5,000, let's assume it's going to cost this guy 25,000. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to say, okay, let me add 25,000 to 300. So that gives me 325. Let me subtract 25 from it. So it has about 300,000. He has about 300,000. That's his net. That's his assumed net over a 5-year period. So let's see what this guy, the cash man, let's see what his net is going to be over a 5-year period. So he had 75 plus 60, that's going to be 135. So 135 plus another 5, so that's 140. Yep. So I hope that was very helpful. So it's no brainer. When you finance, when you finance assets, you tend to do better in the long run. But one thing I would like to mention is that everything is not always about money. Some people they like their peace of mind. So with that being said, maybe if they pay cash, maybe they will rather sacrifice the extra money they will make over the peace of mind. But if you have that risk tolerance, then maybe financing would be a better route for you to go. But if this video is helpful, subscribe, follow for more videos, and send your comment, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.